Hello, I'm Toycat and welcome back to a second channel video. Today we're going to talk about the airports which are closest to the cities they're located in, because airports cause so much stress and inconvenience in your day, and the amount of time they add to, what should be a fairly simple journey is pretty extreme sometimes. However, one of the things that I find crazy is that when you get to the end airport, there's even more time wasted because airports are never usually near cities. There's this whole process of working out like, how do I get from here to there, and you have to, go through the whole steps, and in some cases, this is something that Ryanair, etc., low-cost carriers are famous for. You don't even end up anywhere near the city. So for instance, one of the worst offenders of this is Stockholm's Skavsta airport. This is the airport that Ryanair used to fly in and called to Stockholm. They still do fly there, but they call it Skavsta now. But this is an airport that a lot of people will fly into and then realize that they're an hour and 22 minutes, sometimes it's like an hour and 40 minutes away from Stockholm itself. It's pretty intense, the distance it can be, and that's, by the way, a pretty expensive journey too. It costs 160 Swedish crowns, so if you forgot to bring your money with you and you can't get money out at the time, then guess what? You've got a 23-hour walk ahead of you, or with 113 kilometers, or if you take the alternate route, it's 27 hours. It's pretty extreme, and people like to mock low-cost carriers and be like, oh, Ryanair doesn't take you anywhere near the city. That's something I don't experience with my Lufthansa or my SAS. But even if we go, we remove this example because it's a weird outlier, right? And we take Stockholm's major airport. So bear in mind, this is a really busy international airport. It's the busiest one in the Stockholm airport area, and it's the one that your British Airways, your Lufthansa, your American, your United, whichever airline you're trying to pick will fly into, and it's going to actually be a full 8 hours, or 42 kilometers away from the city too. And although it's much faster by car or by public transport because they have like dedicated light rail link, you've still got to consider the amount of time you waste. So it's only 18 minutes here, or 21 minutes sometimes. The amount of time you're going to be wasting working out how to buy a ticket or working out how to get to the place, like you buy the ticket to get onto the place, the amount of time waiting for a bus or a tram, or even if you take a taxi, Nordic taxi for, that distance, good luck on that one. Or even if you're going to use Uber to save money, driver's 5 minutes away, 10 minutes later, 5 minutes away. All the time and money wasted by airports being far away is just a serious thing that I've learned to consider in my travel plans, because I like traveling for cheap where I can, but the amount it costs to go to airports sometimes makes me realize, because, this isn't a one-off example. If you go to Oslo, exactly the same problem. The airport's really far away from the city, and even if we take the second busiest international airport in the world by international passenger volume, so the place where most international passengers land into, it's a full hour or so away from the main city by, tube. If you want to walk it, it's 5 hours to get from London to Heathrow. Again, major airport, and because this says 15 minutes, by the way, but that's because it takes you to Paddington, where you then have to connect onto other stuff. There's like all these levels of like, oh, I guess you just have to waste time, money, and usually quite a bit of both. So let's talk about the airports which are closest to the cities, because you won't have this issue if you fly into some of them on this list. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through the top 5 closest airports to cities, except you'd figure a list like that would be easy to find, but it's not, because one, how do you define the center of a city? And again, like London is defined as the center being Charing Cross, if I'm not mistaken, so it's just over here. As you can see, this is Charing Cross, but you're not necessarily going to Charing Cross, and most people probably aren't, or Charing Cross you might say, but so that's, not really a great example either. And also, a lot of the airports are close to the cities they're in, or the towns they're in, because they're tiny. So we look at, Sundberg Airport right here, or Sundberg, as you can see, right next to the town that it's named after, but like, are you flying there? Probably not. So we're only going to be counting international airports with more than 100,000 people living in the city that they're serving, and we're going to be counting ones by walking distance to something you could call the center, like a real attraction of some form, a real part of the city that I think most locals would have no problems describing as the center. So that's what we're doing in this video. So you can waste, you can stop wasting all that time and that money working it out and all that stress. You can just walk straight from where you're going to the city. And a great example of that, actually, funnily enough, is Pisa. So Pisa is famous for the thing that you probably think it is. So even if you want to go from the airport to that famous thing, which by the way is the tower, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, the amount of time it's actually going to take you is surprisingly short. It is a 53 to 56 minute walk from the airport. Again, once you've gone through those customs doors and you're like, oh, arrivals, you can just start walking from the airport and you'll reach the Leaning Tower of Pisa, the main attraction, the thing everyone's there for. You'll reach it in a solid 53 minutes. So as a pro tip, again, I've never been to Pisa personally, but I hear like, again, the Leaning Tower of Pisa is pretty much the only thing most people want to see, and it's not actually that big. Like, it seems bigger than it's meant to be. Also, it's been like engineered a bunch of times to stop it leaning as far as it's meant to, so it's like stabilized or whatever, because it was gonna like kill a lot of people as it crushed their apartments. But that's all a side note. But yeah, if you want to go from the airport to the tower, which you probably would if you're coming here, you can walk there. And again, an hour, 50 minutes, that sounds kind of long, but considering that's straight from point to point, and then you can go from one point back to the other one. It's pretty darn good. And if you want to go to anything else in Pisa, which again, most people don't recommend, but maybe that's your thing, you can get to any of these plazas right here for in about 50 minutes, which is even shorter than that. So 53 to 56 minutes, less than an hour from the airport to the city, walk a little bit faster, and suddenly that goes way down even. So we're talking no money wasted, less than an hour of your time wasted, and no stress whatsoever. What could be that, you might ask? Well, it is a top 5 list, so there's obviously going to be something, because next up we're going to go to another European country of Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland has a major capital city called Belfast, and Belfast has 2 airports. Belfast International, which admittedly you'll be flying into for most international, like transcontinental flights. I think you can fly to Newark and a few other airports from there. But also, Belfast has George Best City Airport, or Belfast City George Best. Honestly, it depends on where you're booking the ticket, but most places call it Belfast City, and then some places call it George Best, after the footballer. He's a Northern Irish footballer, pretty famous, most famous person apparently from Northern Ireland, so they named their airport after him. So yeah, if you wanted to get from this airport, which again, like if you look, it looks really close to the city. If you want to go to something major in the city, let's say the big fish, the salmon of knowledge, it would only take, because this is a major tourist attraction in, Belfast, it is the equivalent of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It takes you about 50 minutes, sometimes less. The walking directions tend to change for some reason on this one. I've seen as little as 45 minutes, but 45 to 50 minutes to get from, George Best City Airport to the city itself. And again, although technically there's some stuff that is closer, I think most people from Belfast or have been to Belfast probably consider most things to the west of the river to be the true centre, and the east is kind of like almost the centre. Again, you can read the comments if you want to feel more about that, because I'm sure a lot of Belfast people are watching this video right now. And yeah, it's one of the closest airports to the cities, and it is an international airport, so if you want to see the big fish, the salmon of knowledge, you can walk right there if you want to. Actually, this isn't the best view of him, but there he is. Look at that fish. He's going to give you some serious knowledge, and you can do that in Belfast, Northern Ireland. So yeah, it's also worth mentioning again, the international airport here is mostly only international for European flights. Like you can fly to Amsterdam, or you can fly to somewhere in Scandinavia, but most international like transcontinental flights will still land you at Belfast International, which is really far away from the city, and you're going to have stress getting on like a bus or something, because there used to be a rail link, but it's gone now. So yeah, don't deal with that. If you're from international, it's not as close as you figure. So instead, you might want to go to everyone else's favourite international airport, which is going to be Tallinn. So by everyone else, I mean myself, because I really like Tallinn Airport the time I was there. It's got a real nice feel to it, and it's also really close to the city. So again, if you wanted to go from Tallinn to, let's say, the KGB Museum will be our example today, because again, fun fact, Estonia used to be part of the Soviet Union, which means the KGB used to operate, and they left a bunch of their stuff when they suddenly had to evacuate when Estonia started being independent. And that means you can go see their KGB room in like a major hotel, and you can get there in just 40 minutes from Tallinn City Airport, which is pretty darn amazing, given this is an international airport. It flies most places in Europe. It'll fly to Russia as well. It'll fly to Egypt as well. You can get from, any of those places into Tallinn, walk out of there, and take about 40 to 45, because this only gets you to there. There's an extra 3-minute walk to the terminal. But that, in 40 to 44 minutes, it will get you from the city to again, anything in the main place where you can start to see the old town, stuff like that. And that's pretty darn amazing if you ask me. And also, key thing to note here is the fact that there's public transport, which is really good and really efficient too. There's now tram lines direct from the airport. They installed them like 3 months after I got there, so WTF Estonia. So you can even take a really cheap, because again, it's pretty cheap I imagine, train from the airport. And again, although I'm not recommending that, I think the walk is what this is all about. That's how we're measuring this. I think it's nice that you have the alternative as well, because like 40 minutes, like Estonia's a safe country, you might as well just do that. If you're feeling worried that you'll miss your train and it hasn't arrived, just start walking instead. So next up, we're going to talk about the second closest airport to a city. We've got 3 all in Europe so far, but we're moving all the way into the Far East now, or I believe you call it the Far East. We're in the East at the very least, at the Asian part of the world, because Taipei actually has one of the closest airports to its cities in the world, and it's insane because their airport is located here. That's right, it's located like in the metropolis, and I'm always blown away by that, because like it makes me want to go and see that in life, and maybe sometime I'll fly into this airport, because this is Taipei Songshan Airport. So this isn't actually the only airport in the city. I've seen a few places report that it is. It's actually not even the major one anymore. They've slowly shifted most flights to the other one, but if you're arriving from anywhere in the Asia-ish region, so Japan or from Korea or from other places in China, well, in other China, but let's not get into that. Then you'll arrive into this airport right here, which is so close to, like, look at look at the distance from this to the city. It's not even a distance. If you wanted to go to something like that you could call the center, like, you know, if you just wanted to do something there, the Taiwan Stock Museum, oh, it's 17 minutes. But if we're talking about the real center, something, again, most people from the area would probably consider central/central-ish, depending on your kind of definition, then let's say you want to go to the Miniature Museum of Taiwan, because you really like miniatures and you want to see the Taiwan take on them. It will take you 38 minutes, and if you do that 38-minute walk, which, again, surprisingly easy, surprisingly filled with things to see, it's like actually a pretty nice walk based on, I did it via Google Street View just to like see what it'd be like, because again, it gets me fascinated to see, like, you just walk out and there's stuff there. But if you did that walk from the airport to the city, you would end up in one of the great places for the public transport. You have 4 public transport lines right next to you, and if that's not enough for you, then guess what? There's even a Starbucks there too, so if you're only in Taipei for Starbucks, which is clearly a common thing, then you can take just a 38-minute walk, from the airport to the city, and even less if you consider some of this to be the city. And again, a lot of people might consider the Stock Museum or this junior high school. Oh god, this is getting into a dangerous place. So let's talk about the first closest airport to a city in the world. Again, I want to quickly hand an honorable mention to Rio de Janeiro, which would have been the first one and was first for some time, but no longer is this an international airport. It only flies to other places in Brazil, so this is like there again. Look at it. It's like there's the airport and there's the city. Even to get like some of the major central monuments in the city, it's like so close. So if you wanted to go, it's just like, oh, let's go to this place right here. Oh, it's 20 minutes. Like some things are even less than that. It's so close, but it's not international anymore, and it loses out on the list. So instead, the number 1 spot is another kind of weird one, because it goes to America. So America, the place where everyone drives, 6 hours because they want to do some minor thing, like, who wouldn't mind driving 6 hours to go to the airport or to the shopping mall, or because I felt like it. It's the land of the road trip. That's a good place to put America. Despite that, Boston is very, very East Coasty and therefore a little bit more European-y feeling. And one of the good parts of that, is the airport is relatively close to the city. And by relatively, I mean it's like there. So by distance, this is also one of the closest for a major international airport. Like that distance, it's like 2 kilometers from, again, anything on this island most people would consider to be central Boston. It's 2 kilometers from the island to the island. It's so close. But the catch here is that it's not as easy to walk, because you have to technically go over a ferry and stuff like that. But even in spite of all these like potential minor delays, you can walk straight from the airport. Again, we're going to just have Logan Airport be our start, and we're going to go from Logan Airport to, let's just say the Grain Exchange. And if you want to do that walk, it's 32 minutes. So again, the catch here is you technically have to take a ferry. It's a very frequent ferry, and I was considering not including it, but again, this is Google, Google Maps' walking directions. I thought there was a tunnel there at first, but it is a ferry you have to catch. But it is technically Google Maps' definition of walk. It's a very easy thing to do. The ferry is like an attraction itself, so you can consider this to be your city kind of thing. Like, people like to take the ferry just because it's nice, apparently. It's fairly cheap. It's like $9, which again adds to the cost kind of thing, but like, again, it's easy enough to do. And even if you don't want to take this, it's still only like 40 or something minutes. Although, actually, it's worth mentioning that the route that Google gives you if you say avoid ferries is this, which is terrible for some reason. But yeah, assuming you are willing to take the ferry, the closest airport to the city in the world is Boston Logan International Airport. It's 2 miles away, or 32 minutes. Notice how it switches to miles when we're in America. 32 minutes away from the city, from major stuff. The aquarium's closer, all this sort of stuff is pretty darn insane. And again, bear in mind, Boston International Airport, this is an airport you can fly into from London for like 100, euros, I think it is now, with Norwegian. You can fly into this airport from all over Europe, all over the Americas, even a few Asian flights are going to be starting soon. All this sort of stuff is something that you can get from a major place and a major city, and that's why I want to mention it. So where are the 5 closest airports to cities in the world? I said I'd use the funny Google Maps overlay to show you. Here is number 5, here's number 4, here's number 3, here's number 2, and here's number 1. Is that a valuable use of the Google Maps custom overlay? I don't know, you'll have to tell me, but for now, I hope you all enjoyed this video regardless. Let me know what you think in the comments or whatever. And also, because people are obsessed with like, so how do you travel so much, Toy Cat? There's got to be some, weird story to this. And the simple thing is just like, I decided, because I have like, I can flexibly allot my time, that I try to like dedicate my free time to getting as cheap flights as possible. And I've been like, so people ask like, how do you do it so cheap? Like, how do you know about those €100 flights? And how are you taking them like, 2 or 3 years ago? And most people were paying like thousands. And the simple answer is like, there's so many tiny tips that I picked up over like the 2 or 3 or 4 years I've been taking these like crazy cheap flights, you know, the €3 flight from Strasbourg, etc. All these flights, there's like a tiny little tip I've been using, and I was going to make a video from it, but I started writing like a big list of notes. The notes turned into like a huge document. Now the document I'm going to turn into like, you know, a huge book of like every single piece of advice. And because a lot of, you know, like if you look online for like how do you travel cheaply, you know, what's the trip to traveling, you know, nicely for cheap, and there's a guide of like, oh, here's the best secret ever. If you spend $3,000 a year with American Airlines, they give you free first class upgrades. Asterix on domestic flights. Asterix, you have to spend like thousands of dollars, and it's like, wait, I haven't spent $3,000 on you know, air travel in my life, I don't think, excluding the Singapore flight. But if you exclude that one flight, I spent like significantly less than that, and I've traveled to way more places than just domestic US. So yeah, I've been working on like actually cheap travel, like, you know, the sort of stuff that you'd actually be excited about, rather than, oh, I saved, you know, 10% on my $1,200 flight. And so yeah, that's something that I'm still working on it. Going to be typing away, trying to get like literally every piece of advice. So there's something for everyone, regardless of where you live. Because again, a lot of the stuff is America-centric, where just like prices are way out of whack. Whereas this stuff is going to be way better. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed the video. And second channel, don't care. Goodbye.